The paper was still warm from the printer when Officer Reed tore it in half. Then he tore it again. The pieces fell onto the police station floor like they meant nothing. Daniel Carter stood there silently, staring at them. He had spent 3 nights writing that complaint after putting his children to bed. He had checked every date, every time, every detail. He had written it carefully because he knew that if he made one mistake, someone might use it against him. Now 2 police officers were laughing while his words lay in pieces at his feet. "Sir," Officer Reed said, leaning back in his chair, "we already told you, this isn't a police matter." Daniel looked at the second officer, Blake, hoping for a different answer. Blake shrugged. "Take it to the landlord." Daniel slowly bent down and picked up the torn pieces. "My children live there," he said quietly. Red sighed. "Then take care of your children." Those words hurt more than the torn paper. Daniel was 30 years old and had been raising his 2 children alone for almost 4 years. Daughter Emma was 11. His son Noah was 7. They lived in a small rented house on the east side of town. The paint on the walls was old, the kitchen window did not close properly, and the heater sometimes stopped working in winter. But Daniel had always tried to make it feel like home. He worked mornings at a warehouse and evenings delivering groceries. He rarely complained. If Emma needed school shoes, he skipped buying new clothes for himself. If Noah had a fever, Daniel called his supervisor and lost a day's pay. When Emma asked why their father was always tired, he smiled and said, "Because being your dad is a full-time job." She would laugh, but Daniel knew the truth. Being a single parent meant making difficult choices. Every day. One cold Monday morning, Daniel had discovered water spreading across the ceiling of the children's bedroom. The landlord had promised to fix the roof 2 months earlier. He never did. Daniel called him again. Nothing. Then the ceiling began leaking near Noah's bed. Daniel moved the mattress into the living room. He placed a bucket underneath the leak, and spent the night wiping water from the floor. The next morning, Emma looked at him. "Dad, are we going to have to move?" Daniel stopped tying his work boots. "I don't know, sweetheart." She looked worried. "Are we going to be okay?" Daniel walked over and hugged her. "We're going to be okay." He said it confidently. But after she left for school, he sat alone at the kitchen table and stared at the unpaid bills. He knew something had to change. That afternoon, he discovered another problem. Someone had entered their backyard while he and the children were away. The back door had been forced open. Nothing valuable was missing, but Daniel found muddy footprints leading from the door to the children's bedroom. His stomach dropped. He immediately checked Emma's room. Then Noah's. Nothing was missing. Still, he called the police. 2 officers arrived, Reed and Blake. They looked around for less than 10 minutes. "Probably kids," Reed said. Daniel frowned. The door was forced open. Blake looked at the broken lock. "Get a new one." "I can't afford a new door," Reed sighed. "Then talk to your landlord." Daniel felt anger rising inside him. "My landlord hasn't fixed the roof for 2 months. Reed looked at him. "And I'm asking for help." The officer shook his head. "There's no evidence anyone stole anything." Daniel looked at the muddy footprints. "My kids sleep here." Reed said nothing that night. Daniel barely slept. He sat in a chair beside the children's mattresses in the living room. Emma was asleep under a blanket. Noah had one arm wrapped around an old stuffed bed. Daniel watched them and made a decision. He would go to the station. Not to make trouble, not to get revenge. He just wanted someone to listen. The next morning, he wrote down everything. The broken door, the leaking ceiling, the landlord's ignored messages, the muddy footprints, the dates, the times. He printed the complaint at the public library. Then, after dropping the children at school, he went to the police station. That was where Officer Red tore it up. Daniel gathered every piece of paper from the floor. He stood. "Fine," he said. Reed looked surprised. Daniel's voice remained calm. "But I'm going to keep asking until someone listens." Then he walked out. He didn't know it yet, but those words would change everything. 3 days later, the rain came. It started in the afternoon and continued through the night. Daniel was delivering groceries when his phone rang. It was Emma. "Dad." Her voice was shaking. "What happened?" "Water is coming through the ceiling again." Daniel pulled his car to the side of the road. "Where's Noah?" "He's with me." "Stay downstairs." "I'm coming, Dad." "Yes, I'm scared." Daniel closed his eyes. "I'll be home soon." He ended the call and looked at the delivery bags in his car. He still had 6 orders to complete. If he stopped working, he would lose money. If he kept working, his children were sitting in a house with water coming through the ceiling. He turned the car around. For once, the decision was easy. His children came first. When he arrived home, water was pouring through the ceiling. Noah was sitting on the kitchen counter. Emma was holding towels against the hallway wall. Daniel rushed inside. "Grab your backpacks." "Where are we going?" Emma asked 2 grandmas, but Daniel's mother lived nearly an hour away, and Daniel's car had been making a strange noise for weeks. He loaded the children into the car. Halfway there, the engine began smoking. Daniel pulled over. Noah started crying. "Dad, is the car broken?" Daniel looked at the smoke rising from the hood. "Yes." Emma quietly asked, "What do we do?" Daniel forced a smile. We wait. He called his mother. She sent a neighbor to pick them up by midnight. Daniel and the children were sitting on his mother's living room floor. The children slept. Daniel stayed awake. He looked at his phone. A message from his landlord was waiting. If you can't maintain the property, you may need to leave. Daniel read it. Twice he felt something inside him break. He had worked every job he could find. He had paid rent on time whenever possible. He had fixed small problems himself. He had never asked anyone for charity, but now he was being treated like he was the problem. The next morning, Daniel made another call to the police station. He asked to speak with a supervisor. He was told to come in when he arrived. Officer Reed and Officer Blake were there again. Reed looked annoyed. You're back. Daniel placed a folder on the desk. I want to file a formal complaint about what happened. Reed opened the folder. You already complained. No, Daniel said. You tore up my complaint. Blake laughed. We told you it wasn't necessary. Daniel looked directly at him. I need it documented. Reed picked up the first page. Then he slowly tore it. Daniel froze. You can't do that. Reed tore the second page. Blake pushed the remaining papers back toward Daniel. Go home for a moment. Daniel said nothing. His hands were shaking. He wanted to shout. He wanted to slam his fist on the desk, but he thought about Emma. He thought about Noah. He took a breath. Okay, he said. Reed smiled. Daniel picked up the torn papers. Then he noticed a small camera mounted in the corner of the room. He looked at it for the first time. He wondered if someone else had seen what happened. He left the station, but he didn't give up. Instead, he went to the city administration building. He asked where citizens could submit complaints. When a police officer refused to accept one, a clerk gave him a form. Daniel filled it out. He attached copies of his landlord complaints, photographs of the broken door, pictures of the damaged ceiling, and the dates of his visits to the police station. He didn't exaggerate. He didn't insult anyone. That he simply wrote the truth. 2 weeks passed. Daniel and the children were still staying with his mother. Daniel was sleeping on the couch. He continued working. Emma started worrying about school. Noah began asking when they could go home every night. Daniel told them the same thing. Soon, one evening, Emma found her father sitting alone outside. Daniel looked up. Yeah, are you okay? He smiled. I'm fine. Emma sat beside him. You don't have to say that all the time. Daniel looked at his daughter. She was 11 years old, but sometimes she sounded much older. He swallowed. I'm just tired. Emma leaned against his shoulder. Then let me help. Daniel smiled sadly. You already do. How? You remind me why I keep going. Emma hugged him. Daniel held her tightly. That was the moment he nearly gave up. Not because he was weak, because he was exhausted. He had spent years trying to protect his children from adult problems. But now those problems were sitting right beside them. The next morning, Daniel received a phone call. Mr. Carter. Yes, this is Chief Harris. Daniel sat up. The police chief. Yes, I'd like you to come to the station today. Daniel's heart began beating faster. Am I in trouble? No, the chief said. Then there was a pause. Quite the opposite. Daniel had no idea what that meant. He went to the station that afternoon. Front doors opened and Daniel stopped walking. The entire hallway was filled with police officers. Every officer was standing. At the far end stood Chief Harris. Beside him were officers Reed and Blake. Daniel looked confused. The chief stepped forward. Mr. Carter, he said, before we talk, I owe you an apology. Daniel looked at the officers. Then at the chief. What happened? Chief Harris took a breath. We reviewed the station's security footage. Daniel's eyes moved toward Reed. The chief continued. We saw what happened to your complaint. The room became silent, and we saw how you were treated. Daniel didn't speak. Chief Harris looked at the two officers. What you did was wrong. Reed lowered his head. Blake said nothing. Then Chief Harris turned toward Daniel. There's something else you should know. Daniel waited. The information you brought us helped us discover a larger problem. Daniel's face tightened. What problem? Chief Harris answered quietly. Your landlord has been ignoring safety complaints from several families. Some of those complaints were never properly recorded. Daniel stared at him. He had thought his case was just about a broken door and a leaking roof. It wasn't. His complaint had uncovered a pattern, and suddenly, the papers those officers had torn up felt more important than ever. Chief Harris led Daniel into a small conference room. On the table were copies of complaints from other families. A mother with 3 children. An elderly couple. A father whose apartment had a broken heating system. Several tenants had reported problems. Their complaints had gone nowhere. Daniel sat quietly. What happens now? He asked. Chief Harris answered honestly. We investigate. Daniel nodded. And my children? We've contacted the city's housing department. Your landlord will be required to address the safety violations. Until then, we've arranged emergency housing assistance for your family. Daniel looked surprised. I didn't ask for special treatment. You aren't getting special treatment, the chief said. You're getting the help you should have received the first time. Daniel looked down. For years, he had believed asking for help meant admitting failure. Now he understood something. different. Sometimes asking for help was how a person protected the people he loved. The investigation continued. The landlord was found to have ignored several serious safety complaints. The broken doors were repaired. The roof was fixed. The city's housing department inspected the property, and the police department changed its complaint procedure so that every citizen's complaint had to be formally recorded. As for officers Reed and Blake, they were removed from public complaint duties while the department reviewed their conduct. Daniel never asked for them to lose their jobs. He only wanted accountability. A few weeks later, Daniel finally took Emma and Noah back home. The ceiling was repaired. The back door had a new lock. Noah ran from room to room. Dad, look. He opened his bedroom door. No bucket. Daniel laughed. No bucket. Emma walked into the kitchen. She looked around. Feels like home again. Daniel nodded. It does. That evening, they ate dinner together. It wasn't fancy, just chicken, rice, and vegetables. But Daniel looked around the table and felt richer than he had in years. Emma smiled. Dad, yeah, did the police chief really make everyone stand for you? Daniel laughed. He didn't do it because I'm special. Then why? Daniel thought for a moment. He wanted them to understand something. What? That ordinary people deserve respect too. Noah looked up from his plate. Are you famous now? Daniel laughed. No. Emma smiled. I think you are. Several days later, Daniel received a letter from the police department. It invited him to a community meeting. When he arrived, he saw families from his neighborhood sitting in the room. Chief Harris stood at the front. He spoke about accountability, spoke about listening. And then he called Daniel forward. Daniel walked to the front. The chief turned toward the officers' stand. Every officer in the room stood. Daniel looked uncomfortable. Chief, Harris continued, this man came into our station with a complaint. Instead of listening, 2 officers tore it up. The room was silent. He didn't threaten anyone. He didn't insult anyone. He didn't give up. The chief looked at Daniel. He kept asking for someone to do the right thing. Then Chief Harris turned toward the officers. Salute. Every officer raised a hand to salute. Daniel's eyes filled with tears. He had never expected that. He looked at the officers and quietly shook his head. You don't have to salute me, he said. Chief Harris lowered his hand. We're not saluting you because you're a hero. Daniel looked confused. We're saluting because you reminded us what this job is supposed to mean. Daniel looked down. He thought about the torn papers. The leaking ceiling. The broken door. Emma's frightened voice on the phone. Noah sitting on the kitchen counter. He thought about all the nights he had wondered whether he was doing enough for his children. Then he realized something. He had not won because he was powerful. He had won because he refused to become silent. After the meeting, Officer Reed approached him. He looked uncomfortable. Mr. Carter. Daniel turned. I owe you an apology. Daniel waited. I was wrong. Blake stood behind him. He nodded. So was I. Daniel looked at both men for a moment. He considered walking away. But then he remembered what he wanted his children to learn from him. Not revenge, not hatred. Accountability. He extended his hand. I accept your apology. Reed shook it. Blake did the same. Daniel walked outside. Emma and Noah were waiting beside his car. Emma ran toward him. How did it go? Daniel smiled. It went well. Noah looked at him. Did they salute? Daniel laughed. Yes. Noah's eyes widened. Daniel opened the car door. Come on, let's go home. As they drove away, Daniel looked at his children in the rearview mirror. They were laughing about something. For the first time in months, he wasn't thinking about unpaid bills, broken doors, or unanswered complaints. He was simply listening to his children laugh, and that was enough. Because Daniel learned something that day. Being strong does not always mean fighting. Sometimes strength means staying calm when people disrespect you. Sometimes it means asking for help when you are tired. Sometimes it means standing up for your children even when your voice is shaking. And sometimes one ordinary person refusing to give up can remind an entire system to do better.